Hello, it's Friday. Garland Nix here. I don't even know my name. I'm tired. I got home late last night. Garland Nixon, I think that's who it is. I'm here and we're hanging out with Sarah from DD Geopolitics. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with Sarah from DD Donbass Devushka. The young lady of Donbass is hanging out with us. Follow DD Geopolitics on Telegram, and you've got I think you guys got a YouTube channel that's doing pretty well, right, Sarah?
It's all right. It's all right. We're building and we're broadcasting there live there now, featuring Garland Show. But yeah.
All right.
And on X, of course, where it's a Garland desert. So
yeah, exactly.
We'll quench the thirst on X for Garland, but yes.
All right. And so let's get going. Here's what I wanted to, everybody's talking about the Iran thing, but let's talk about a couple of others. Let's talk about the politics of it a little bit. One of the things that I think is interesting is, and I felt like this would kind of wreck MAGA. And for people who know me, I'll give you the real brief, my thoughts on MAGA. My thoughts on MAGA comes from my time at Fox News, from what I saw in 2010 when the Tea Party rose. And my belief is MAGA was the Tea Party. 2008, the crash. What was the Tea Party pissed off about mostly? The bailouts. It was initially an economic move. It was people that were like, I'm getting screwed. You know, people want to hate on the team. I'm not saying I have ideological alignments far to the left of them, but this is reality. Reality is it was initially a economic movement. They were pissed over the bailouts. You're bailing out the rich people and we get screwed. That was the Tea Party. And they named it Taxed Enough Already. It was their economic anger. And I watched it and they kind of wandered aimlessly. And then Trump came along and he renamed it MAGA, took the helm, what have you. And if you look at the people who are the Tea Party, involved in the Tea Party, that's MAGA. Culturally, everything, that's MAGA. And I've always said, I've always said, everybody thinks Trump has a firm grip on MAGA. And I'm always like, they were there before him and they could leave him. I think that this business, and because I'm looking online and a lot of MAGA people are pissed. They're like, hey, we didn't like, there's certainly some, but they're like, we didn't sign up for this. And then others are arguing with them saying, oh, yeah, you did, But your thoughts on the political fallout, on what you think, Tucker Carlson's pissed and some of the MAGA people. How do you think this does this affect the MAGA people? Do they leave Trump? Do they stay with him? Anyway, I threw all that at you. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that you will have your MAGA diehards and they'll stay and they'll make excuses, and they already are. They're, last night the Republicans said, or Congress people came right out and said, we must pray for Israel as Israel's targeting Iran. So you have those people. You do have people today that have stated Iran should not have been aggressive for so long, which I'm still not understanding the aggression. But there you have, MAGA has a lot to answer for, period. They have a lot to answer for. Their fell for it again trophies are stacking up in their little trophy case. They have a lot to answer for. They have gotten nothing done. We have gotten none of the things that we were promised. And in fact, not only have we gotten none of the things that we've promised, we've actually gone against the things that we promised, especially since right now, Trump is stating that he knew the whole time and he's happy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't consider, when I say MAGA, I'm not talking about the people in Congress. I consider them the machine. MAGA, I'm talking about the people on the street, the people who were the Tea Party people, the regular people who are out there supporting the numbers, right? The coalition of groups of people who came together to support Trump. And I think he's going to lose. Okay, he's going to have a certain amount of diehards, but he won because he brought some extra new people on and MAGA kind of grew. From just the average voter out there, not people who are part of the machine. I think some of those people are falling off or going
A
to fall
lot
off.
of them are, especially the. I mean, I know quite a bit of MAGA. Most of the people that I know are not in the they're more of the Charlie Kirk MAGA, the more of those kind of MAGA. Not Zionists though, and they're very disappointed. They're very disappointed. Very disappointed. They're these sorts of non-diehards, these sorts of critical thinking MAGA supporters are very angry and disappointed. People that understand geopolitics understand that this wasn't necessary, and people that were really watching know that the UN and everyone worked with Israel to make this possible. It's a really, once people, after the dust settles and the smoke clears, once people take a step back and realize what went on to make this attack on Iran possible, it's disgusting what the UN and the United States and the UK did. And it's absolutely disgusting. And they lied to us. It wasn't even like the weapons of mass destruction. It was worse. They lied, and they didn't even really explicate what was even going on. We didn't even get a show like we did for weapons of mass destruction. It was all feelings, rhetoric, and emotions. And that's very frightening.
Well, a bit also too, and what I've seen, and I think this is going to be a part of the pushback, and the whole kind of America First thing. What was that? What interpreting that? This is how I interpreted it from talking, like saying, I know MAGA people, plenty of them, and it was a big part of that was like, even like Ukraine. That's why a lot of them were opposed to Ukraine, because they were like, why are we spending all that money over there? So it should be here. So there was a financial element to it. There was a lot of people saying, I don't like the war machine, period, point blank. The war machine, spending all this money over there, putting all that money, and we don't get anything. So that was kind of, I think, with a lot of the MAGA people, there was a America First element was a financial. We're spending money on all of this crap, nothing for us back home, right? And I think they were like, in Ukraine, for God's sake, why are we wasting that money there, spending that money? That's the way they saw it. We have different, more intricate and detailed and perspectives of it culturally and morally and things of that nature and politically. But there were a lot of MAGA people that was like, what the hell are you doing, spending all that money over here? Okay, which is not unreasonable. And I'm hearing some of those who are like the same thing. You're starting another war. We're going to send all this money for this or that, so there's that element of the America First people that, again, have that economic view of the world that are very, very disappointed.
I mean, they somewhat have a right to be, but they also don't. I mean, all you have to do is look at the patterns of Trump's behavior. You can watch who Trump surrounds himself with, who Trump is ingratiated to. People want to downplay this Palantir takeover. There is an entire technocratic coup going on. There's even some people might even be justified in saying Trump doesn't have a lot of control over the situation. Who knows? I'm not really sure what goes on in the back rooms. But if you watched what was going on, this is exactly what you voted for. If you understood what was happening in the world, if you understand multipolarity and geopolitics from an international scale, this is what you voted for, because all of the promises that he made on his platform weren't achievable when it came to foreign policy, because he doesn't understand how international players play. He doesn't understand how to engage with Russia and Ukraine. He doesn't understand the Middle East. Clearly, he only understands the Gulf, and he thinks that's all that matters in the Middle East. And so that is what they voted for. We were promised 90 deals in 90 days. We've gotten 0. And it is now, over 150 days? This is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. And they haven't said anything, and I'm not trying to make it about them, but I really hope Russia is looking and taking notes, because those talks need to be ended, or at the least, the United States needs to be removed from any sort of mediating position or anything, and just put squarely on the side of Ukraine. This is a complete disgrace. I'm really disgusted. I'm disgusted. I'm happy that Iran is retaliating. We'll see how far that goes. I am disgusted with MAGA. Somebody said they look goofy. They do look goofy. They look crazy. They look crazy. They look like a doomsday cult. Always just waiting for the next thing. Trust the plan. Trust the plan. We're talking about Q drops again. Like, are we serious right now? We are so far gone. So far gone.
Something that's interesting, and this is what I thought about. I also see the system. The system knows how to play people, right? I see Trump as the Republican Obama for this reason. Look, things were terrible. People, 2008, all things were gone, shot to hell. And all of these people were hoping for something, hoping change. They were hoping, right? And Obama comes in and he said all the right things and everything. And he was a smart guy and he sounded great. And he said the right stuff. He talked about peace and getting along with it. He says all the right things, very similar things that Trump said, right? Yes, and these countries, if they want to stick a hand out and we'll put a hand out and shake, all this stuff, right? And then when he got in, Syria, Libya, and I mean, on and on and on, Ukraine, on and on. And he just, when he got in, drone killings every Tuesday and going after whistleblowers. I mean, when he came in, he did the opposite and all these people got schmucked. But the system knows how to take, when you have hope and whatever, they know how to take advantage of that. And I think that's why I say Trump, he was a Republican Obama. When people were like, we're sick and tired of this Trump. I'm going to be the peace president. I'm going to reach out to Putin. We're going to end that. Remember this? I'm going to talk to Xi. I'm going to call Xi, and together we're going to bring peace in the world. There'll be peace here, peace there, with blah, 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 right? He played the same Obama game. Within 6 months, we got to attack Yemen. We got to blow stuff up in Russia. I don't know anything about that. But the exact same operation, sneaking drones in and blowing things up at the exact same time we're doing it in Russia. We're doing the exact same thing in Iran, but Trump had no idea about. Apparently he knew one, but not the, you know what I mean? So it's like Obama. You come in and you tell them all the peace stuff they want to hear and the change, and we're going to focus on economics. And when you get in, oh, I'm in now. Thank you, suckers. So in a way, I'm not as mad at MAGA. I see the system knowing how to take advantage of people who are desperate. I believe that they're kind of victims, just like the Obama people, which I was one of them, were victims of the lie.
That's a lot of it. It's that desperation that breeds idealism. It's totally normal and totally valid. I totally get it. So there is a lot of people. Those are the people that will be broken up over it. I can't believe the betrayal. I can't believe he did this. So I get it. They're totally valid. There were a lot of people. I mean, we were so dejected at the end of the Biden administration that there was any sliver of hope most people were grasping onto for dear life. So I absolutely get it. I will never go to somebody like, look at who you voted for. You look at what you did. Like, that's just not the way to engage in political discourse. But I don't know. I think that there's a lot of them should have known. The same cast of characters that engaged in the Middle East back then are still in around. Steve Bannon's still advising Trump. Stephen Miller's still advising Trump. Jared Kushner is heavily involved. So why would the policy really change that much? Not to mention, I mean, just look at his donors and what they're doing. So it's actually, and I don't mean this from a condescending place, it's really sad that like America doesn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice in this election. They really didn't. And they've really been betrayed. And I think that that's the message that should be conveyed, because what it really was, and what we, even with you, I've been talking about it, the us versus them isn't the white people versus the Mexicans or the Americans versus the immigrants. It's us versus the regime, whether it's the Trump regime or the Biden or the Obama or the Clinton, whatever it's called, it's us versus the machine. It's very clear that they do not take any of our interests into account when they engage into foreign policy. And this goes for both sides, even more so for MAGA, because I feel like Trump was there was at least the myth that Trump listens to MAGA. Trump's influenced by the influencers. He's not. It's the other way around. The influencers are there manufacturing consent for Trump and JD Vance and the Palantir takeover. So
you know what else is interesting, and that is all of this. They're charging Trump with 1 million charges. They're going to take him out. They're going to do all this stuff. They're going to throw him in jail. And in the end, I feel like that's one of the things that helped him win. I've always felt like all of these charges against Trump and all of this stuff kind of sent a message that it helped to give him street cred as the outsider. He's the anti-system person. The system hates him. The system starts trying to destroy him. They're trying to take him out, but they're not successful. All of these things like cemented this belief that people had that he was the anti-system person. And then when you look at his election, and there's Bezos and Zuckerberg, and there's like $1.5 trillion, and there's only
In the
like
front
five
row, yeah.
people, like 5 people there, right? And then I do recall when old Doge boy started firing, the soccer moms at the Department of Environment.
At
And people were like,
USAID.
oh yeah, they're making the government smaller. And I said, they're going to keep the USAID.
Privatize them.
They're just moving it somewhere
They
else.
did.
But they control it a little better. That's all. They just bringing the dog in so they can control it with a tighter leash. But number one, number two, I said, I'd rather they keep the soccer moms at the Department of the Environment, because they will, however much they save by firing all these people, they'll give, I said, double that will be the increase alone in the military spending. Well, it's more like 10 times that in the military. Trump comes in, I'm going to cut military spending. By how much? Well, 8% for 4 years, coming up to 42%, blah, blah, blah. What did he do? He increased it more than anybody in the history of this country. So he's been kind of sending the signals for a while that the whole thing was a fraud.
Well, I mean, Doge was clearly Doge was the rip. Doge went in there to rip out all of the data and all of the locks on the back doors for Palantir. So those was the rip, and now Palantir's in there, and Doge doesn't. I mean, guys, I understand they employ the flood the zone technique. It's bad. Even I don't work. All I do is pay attention to the news. And even I am like, my head is spinning. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's real. So I don't even know how regular Americans do it or are even expected to pay attention to what's actually going on. All they see is the fanfare and the big headlines of the celebrations. We found $2 million used for trans mice in Argentina. Now we're going to take it back. What they didn't see, and what we were telling them and screaming from the rooftops, is they will take the public and make it private. And the people that were running USAID, especially the ones in Latin America, where the most violent USAID missions are done, are now running GHF in Gaza, killing Palestinians. So USAID, the name is gone, but it's all been privatized, and they're making millions. What these people do, and this is what capitalism does, it finds a public sector service or a public sector function and says, I want that money. I'll show you how I'll do it. And that's exactly what they did with USAID. And then they realized we can't do it without the NED. So they refunded the NED and stuck it under the guys that are privatized now. It's bonkers. It's bonkers. It is all private capital. It is all private enterprise. And all you have to do is pull like a minor thread or just follow one trail of money, and you get back to the most sinister, darkest thing. And the thing you mentioned, the soccer moms at USAID, at least they...
No, I was talking about like they went to like
the
the Department of Environment or the EPA or whatever the hell they were doing. At least they were putting money into the, they were buying a home, a car. They were putting money into the environment here, working for the EPA or the I knew people work for the FDA department. And there are people living in a cookie cutter neighborhood with 2.5 kids in a minivan. At least the money was going into something other than Lockheed Martin and as you said, and Palantir's R&D department.
Well, I mean, and I say at least the soccer moms at the EPA and whomever was at USAID had empathy and a set of morals, whether they aligned with mine or not, or yours or not, they at least had them. These Palantir guys study their ideology. These tech bros do not have empathy. Whether they're autistic or they're actually like this, they are sociopaths. They do not understand human emotion. They don't care about it. They don't care about what's right and wrong. Did you guys watch the interviews? I posted them on the big account. They're still there. Peter Thiel being asked yesterday about Palantir functioning in Gaza. And he said, I defer everything to the IDF. That's my bias. He said, my bias is to defer everything to the IDF. These people have no morals. These people have no empathy. They have watched the same genocide you and I have watched for the last 2 years, and they decided that it's okay to give these people more technology to do the genocide more efficiently. That's who we're dealing with. And these are the people that people want to give the keys to all of our data to. It's psychotic. I kid you not. Like, I have never felt more strongly about moving out of the country than I do today.
It's a failed state. In my opinion, look at this. Here's an example. Here's Alex Karp, the guy that runs Palantir. The U.S. will very likely fight a three-front war against Russia, China, and Iran. Palantir's Alex Karp says, well, right now the U.S. is fighting a war against Russia and Iran. The only thing is now. Here's the thing: the U.S. that don't mean him. That means everybody else's sons and daughters and husbands and brothers. That don't mean him. His job is to sit back and to, basically be like the Azov guy who stands back and shoots you in the back if you try to retreat. That's his game, So you look at these sociopaths, and you're like, if they don't if right now the MAGA, if America doesn't figure it out, A, Trump's one of them, and B, they didn't co-opt. I've heard people say Trump's been co-opted. No, he has not.
Stop
been
taking
co-opted.
away this man's agency. Is he a weak man? Well, who's taking away this man's energy? I mean, agency. I thought he was so strong, so big, he couldn't be brought down. Who was taking his energy or agency? Who's taking it?
Co-opted? No, he hasn't been co-opted. They act like, look, I had the guy Jerry Kuzmarov on earlier. We were, he does all the covert action magazine stuff, all the CIA stuff, and we were going over these "No to the Kings," this big the anti-Trump rallies that's going on. They've got all this stuff going on in LA or wherever. So there's like, okay, we got justification for Palantir, right? Now they've got all of these other protests. They'll probably try to get them violent. There'll be pallets of bricks laying around. The game, right? And I said, let's do this. As a former investigator, I just like to look behind the scenes a little bit. No2kings.org. That's the people that's behind this whole protest, right? Let's go to who is, and let's do a search and see who owns it. I did a search. Guess what it is? It is a company that owns that. Who is? There's a company that they get your website and hide who owns it. So the No2Kings website that's doing this whole anti-Trump march all over the country seems to be unthinkably well funded. If you go search to see who owns that website, it's a proxy company that deliberately, what this proxy company does is you go to them so you can buy a website and they will hide the owner.
Yep.
Guess what? I said, well, let me check one of their partners to see. Same thing. So you've got this website and their partner websites also. And when you search to see who owns it, most of them seem to be hidden. So you can't find out the owner. I think I've got a pretty good idea who owns the website. And it would be out of the same people that run Mirror Vets out of Langley, Virginia, most likely.
Yeah. And you want to know what? These protests that have been sensationalized and exaggerated and now are all over the country and threatening our well-being. These have been sensationalized, encouraged, and exaggerated on purpose, so they run right into the King's rally. Period. They want a huge explosion tomorrow during Trump's birthday party parade. Huge. I don't know if these people will give it to them or not, but I mean, it's so hard with these protest movements because you don't know where the co-option begins or co-opting begins and where it ends or what's organic and what's not. And that's why I tend to just stay away from all of them because it's just such a psyop. And I don't think that even if these were organic, these No Kings protests would be effective. So they feel like it feels like a lot of energy and money sink for something that, like you said, we don't even know. People are saying that the husband of one of the Code Pink founders is behind a lot of it. Guys, stop with this Code Pink nonsense. Go trace their money. It goes back to Soros. Okay, can we stop with the charade? Like, seriously? Let's stop with the charade. Trace these people's money back. It all goes back to George Soros and all these WEF and Bilderberg networks. It's all the same. They play both sides. I love the theme. The theming and the branding is fire. Everything.
Well, what do you know? It's blue and yellow. Everybody these days has the blue
and yellow. Oh my God!
Always, you got to always have the color for the Ukraine flag color.
Green. That's the Ukrainian flag.
Always. Look at that. What do you know? Wow. These are the same people. But here's what kills me. So, okay, let's do about. Nothing. About. Who's in charge? Who, what, does? Nothing. Zero. Doesn't exist. And what kills me is, and I went over this, look at this toolkit, right? It's exactly exactly what they did in Ukraine, right? Look at all the stuff they have. What is No Kings? Why we're mobilizing, bunch of crap. Hosting your own mobilizations. What to know before you, I mean, you go on. Mobilization tactics. Guidance, check for events in your area. Resource for hosts, messaging. They tell you what to say. He's using our tax dollars to pay for his party. It's about Trump. It's not about nothing. They've gone too far. They tell you what to say. Then click here, posters and graphics. Oh, wait a minute. Security. Here's how to do that, right? Oh, you need insurance? Click here. We'll give you insurance. On and on. Get support. Here's the phone number.
Yeah,
Just call
this is
here.
like a corporate
Plenty.
protest.
Look at this.
It's like a
Media
franchise.
attention. Build a media list. Introduce yourself. Advise. Run a grade. Key event roles. This is how you set it up. A sample event agenda. Look how intricate this is. Planning for the unexpected. Look at this. Mobilize tools. This is canceling your event. Everything you can think of about that's exactly what they did. They spent the $5 billion on, but prior to Maidan, they had clinics in Ukraine where they brought people in and they taught them all that stuff to prepare for the Maidan event. They prepared for it for years. They spent $5 billion preparing for Maidan. That's all this is. It's exactly the same thing. And when you look at, I mean, the website is so obviously, oh geez, the Ukraine flag colors. It's a bit of a giveaway that this is a intelligence psyop.
I mean, it feels yucky. Even, I mean, the branding, when you see something that looks, see, this is the problem we run into all the time. People say, but who pays you? And I'm like, nobody, we're independent. They're like, but your stuff looks so good. And I'm like, yeah, that's because we care. So you see branding like that, something's up. That branding and the colors is kind of a little bit of a giveaway. And it looks a lot like some of the Ukrainian donation sites, which is very interesting, which is who would be running these protests, that sort of pro-Ukraine, pro-NATO network. So that might be there purposely, that Ukrainian flag at the bottom of that website. It's very interestingly placed. This is nuts. This is bonkers.
Well, the last time I did a bunch of stuff on the last one, and I did a research on everything and found out who all the people were, and some other people did that and exposed that what was the last one in May about Trump and Elon Musk, and it was the same thing, but you could dig, you could click, and you could find out who it was, right? That's what's so obvious. You could click on the websites, you could find out who was behind it, and then I researched and reported on who was behind it. So before, it kind of got exposed to a lot of people online that the whole thing was a fraud. Come on, the person behind the last one, the two people were like former State Department or CIA, in other words, right? The other one was like ran an NGO that was funded by BlackRock and Goldman Sachs. So you know what the deal was. Okay, this time, and this is the obvious giveaway, they've done away with all of that. This time you can't find. Here's the thing that kills me: this gigantic protest. I'm an investigator. I know how to do it. No matter how much I search, I can't find who's behind that.
That's what I said. I said, who's the leader? Like, who's the, we have our anti-war rallies and we have our lineup of speakers. And then we contact Dave or we talk to whomever. And we're like, we know all that. Who is in charge of this? And why haven't they reached out to the anti-war alternative media? Why haven't they reached out to any of us? So kind of interesting. The whole thing is very interesting to me. I always find this kind of groupthink and these sort of kind of cultish movements very interesting, very intriguing.
So here's what I'm going to do for people who don't know how to do this. Let's just show them real quick. If you want to find out who owns a website, you do a who is search, right? You can just search the who is database, right? And so no2kings.org, let's see who owns it, right? Boom, we'll do a search. It's taken. The name is nokings.org. Let's go down and see who owns it. Registration private. Whoever did no2kings.com made sure. Why would you need to hide who owns the website? Unless, of course, I don't know, it was an intelligence operation from the Mossad / CIA / whatever the hell they all are, Palantir. Palantir, that's what it is. It's on Palantir.
Probably. They're probably dumping all kinds of money in there. People don't want to hear it. They really don't. They treat me, and I've kind of gotten a little bit quieter about it, because they treat you like you're a crazy person when you're like, guys, these protests are being amplified to usher in Palantir and the surveillance state. And they're just like, you're an insane person. And so I've kind of given up. But I think there's a lot of validity, or it should be explored, whether how much Palantir is involved in the support and the progression of these protests, especially the No Kings. That one is very suspicious. We do have breaking news, though. Iran has shot down at least 3 aircraft, and they've captured at least 1 pilot, a woman.
Really? Interesting. Wow, I didn't know that. What did I want to say? Something else. And the other one was
absolutely bombarded. Tel Aviv cannot keep up. The missiles are raining down on Tel Aviv right now.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, it's going to be something. We'll just keep an eye on this. And thank you for the update.
Yeah.
What did I want to say? Something else. Oh yeah, and people look up the other one and see that where they made the mistake last time with these the fake indivisible.org. I'll show you this, where they made the mistake the last time, and they changed. It's funny because they changed it. So the last time, here's where they screwed up. The main page for the website of the last you know, I'm tired, no sleep, my brain ain't working yet. The last protest, it said, for more information, go to info@indivisible.org. And I looked at it and I'm like, okay, so indivisible.org is behind it. So let's take a look at that, right? And then what I did is I went there, and then I went to who we are, and then I went to our leadership, and voila, Leah Greenberg.
Wow, 2 Zionists, 2 liberal Zionists.
Nah, who would have thought that? Co-founder, blah, blah, blah. She worked, and you go on, but it leaves out, when you look her up, that she worked for, oh, by the way, here's what it leaves out about Leah Greenberg that's very interesting. She worked for Tom Piarello very closely. Right, who she worked with him when he was running for governor. She was just like chief person. Then she worked for him when he was in Congress. Do you know what Tom Piarello did when he left Congress until just the last few months? He was the CEO of the Open Society Foundation for Soros. She worked with this guy after she worked for the State Department. So the bottom line is, me and some other people like checked her out, and old Ezra Levin, right? And once you start looking into them, let's just say it don't take long before this thing goes bad in a hurry. And you start realizing, you start searching them, you'll find out it's PSYOP City, right? So a bunch of people were putting that up online and putting stuff about them and all this kind of stuff. This time when they did it, they hid everything about the websites. Everything.
Smart.
And let me show you something else. No Kings did, because I've got where I went over this, right? Okay, the last time, one of the things that I did was they got partners. So I went to the partners and I said, all right, let me start clicking on them, right?
Look at them. You don't even have to click on them.
They're not active. The last time they were active, you clicked on them and they were all links. And I was clicking on them and other people were showing who they are. This time, you can't click on them.
So, yeah, so you have to do it manually. Who's going to do all of that?
You have to search them up yourself. And, you know, there's all of this fake stuff everywhere, Zionist stuff everywhere. And then some of the usual.
This is such slop. These are all just fake shell company NGOs with a logo. Just slap a logo on it.
A lot of them are similar. Look at this. You'll find a lot of the same colors. Look at these here. You know, you start seeing that's close to the colors. If you look at it, you can find enough.
These are all
things that are similar to tell that there was one person or one group of people who made multiple ones of these logos. When you look at the
Yep.
logo
Oh, you can tell.
style,
Yep.
there many of them are very, very, very similar.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and even the names. Look at this: 3 names: move to amend, and it's one atop of the other. Make polluters pay, one over
Yep.
top of the other. New digital now over top of the other, right? And you see over and over and over where you see 3
People's
words.
Actions Institute. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, music declares emergency.
Yep. Yep. So when you look at them, if you know what you're looking for, it screams out that these were all made in the basement of CIA headquarters in Langley, most likely. They're all or USAID or whatever. And the bottom line is, and then it comes down to this. It gets back to this, doesn't it? Trump's a friggin' fraud. The whole fraud. And the whole it's almost like you look at these protests and you're like, they're all a fraud. I know people who are stupid enough, naive enough to like go to the protest and think it's real. They couldn't do it if they couldn't, but the people behind it, it's a setup. It's a complete setup. What do you think about, what are your thoughts about the future of MAGA? Do you think that there are a lot of people who are pissed? I'll put it like this. I know one thing I noticed, a lot of libertarians, I have a lot of friends that are libertarians and we have ideological differences, but one thing I'll say about the libertarians, mostly, for the most part, there's some damn liberal libertarians, I'll tell you that. But most of them tend to be anti-war and they don't like a lot of that crap. And I think a lot of the libertarians are going to drop off. I see online a lot of them getting pissed off because they thought, okay, because a lot of libertarians wouldn't like really get into the conservatives or the Republican Party because they kind of were like, yeah, you guys are just like, and then Trump kind of fooled a lot of them into thinking that, oh, maybe he's going to be anti-war. I think a lot of them are going to jump ship. What do you think?
We really got to push because it's you're not on Twitter. MAGA's home is Twitter. Okay. They are very, very gaslit. They are very, very, there's confirmation bias. You have to continuously remind them. And they will come around. I mean, they're not retarded or like imbeciles. MAGA is dead. I'm sorry. I know. I love my MAGA friends or whatnot. I love Republicans and I lean conservative, obviously. MAGA is dead. It's time to admit that it was a lie. It's time to join in the real us versus them. And stop fighting their battles for them in places like Los Angeles and Chicago, and stop doing the dirty work for them and stop being manipulated by them. And if you start really paying attention, you'll see what the actual plan is. And it's to put JD Vance into office so these disgusting, degenerate tech bros can run rampant and have carte blanche to do whatever they want to our economy and our people. Once JD Vance is in, that's it. You guys have cooked the country. It's over. We are on the brink right now. I'm being very sincere. I know I'm dramatic. You guys love it when I'm dramatic, but I'm being dead serious. I have never thought more seriously about getting the F out of here. And I've been through the ringer in this country. I have been through FBI raids. I've been through interrogations. I've been through doxing. I've lost my job, my family, etc. And I've never until today said, I really need to get the hell out of here, because right now it's not even about me. It's not about keeping me safe. It's about this. This is becoming unsafe for everyone and the world.
Yeah, I'm with you. In a lot of ways, I'm definitely with you, because when this whole thing went down last night, I looked at it and my immediate reaction was, America's a failed state. But there's so many things, everything from the political stuff about they bring in some fake Obama or Trump bull crap, and then he pretends that he's for peace and people buy into it. And then you got 4 more years of a guy who's just another neocon. The protests, the Palantirs, I could go on and on and on. So many things come together. Trump, yes, I'm going to try to get a deal, and blah, blah, blah. We're concerned about America's first and our own economy. All of that stuff together. And the whole thing's a lie and a fraud. So at some point, you got to throw in the towel and say, this is not, I love the Democrats. They're attacking our democracy. This is not a democracy. That's absurd.
What are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you crying? Like, they're literally crying about something you should have cried about in the 90s. Like, enough. We're here in the year of our Lord 2025, and you guys are so far behind. We're literally up against a technocratic coup, and these people are talking about they're ruining democracy. Bill Clinton did that in the 90s. You should have cared then, liberal. Now we're here. We are literally dealing with a bunch of, we call them the homocons. I'm sorry, but a bunch of these degenerate gay mafia, and they are literally have all of the power. And Trump is over there laughing like a maniac as Israel bombs Iran and brings us into World War III after we repeatedly said Bibi is dragging us into war. And he said, no, no, no. And they strung us along and said, we're fighting. And they strung us along and said, the UN is against Israel, when the whole time the UN was working with Israel to complete a huge attack on Iran. This has shattered all of international law. This has shattered any sliver of trust left in the UN. The UN was something that, now you guys have to understand, the Middle East, Arab countries, and the third world, they're all idealist. They're very idealist. They very much subscribe to international institutions, i.e. the UN, because that's what they have to do. Look at what Iran said last night. They were betrayed by the UN. The UN went in there and did an inspection and then told Israel where the stuff was.
Yeah.
And once Iran found out about that, Israel immediately attacked, because that was the end of it. So the UN needs to be, there's just so much going on. When the dust settles and the smoke clears, there's so many conversations to be had. This is enormous. I don't think people really understand the gravity of this and what America has just done.
I get this feeling too. There's a reality, and it's like you can be such a jerk that like nobody at school will hang out with you and talk to you anymore, right? I think we're moving to the point, and we're going to get there, where like nobody's going to buy T-bills. People are going to be like, oh, it was made in America. I don't buy that. You know what I mean? Where people are going to vote with their feet around the world in their pocketbook. Oh, geez, what is that? Starbucks or McDonald's, or the hell with that. I'm not, you know what I mean? Where the allure of American products, food, whatever the hell we're selling, it's going to be the opposite, where people are going to look at it and say, oh my God, that's American, isn't it? That's the last thing I want. And we will be ostracized, because there's a reality. You can't just go around the world pushing everybody else around. Sooner or later, you're going to need other people for things. And people are just, it's going to be a point where the U.S. is going to be just ostracized. It's just a rogue regime. The fact that you just say, I think we'll make up a reason to attack that country over there. We'll lie to our citizens, and we're going to attack that country. Why? Weapons of mass destruction. Hell, it worked last time. Good enough, and just attack anybody.
They didn't even give us like the good, like at least for the Iraq War, they warmed us up over months.
Yes,
kind of tracked us. Here it was like 3 days. It was like they're building a bomb. We know they're building a bomb. Now we're bombing. Like it was like what? Like I just blinked. Pete Hegseth said they're building a bomb, and now we're all of a sudden bombing, and it happened so fast. And even the aftermath, where like I said, people were like, Iran shouldn't have been so aggressive. You guys have to understand, anytime that the Houthis, Ansar Allah, or Hezbollah or Hamas does anything, they attribute that to Iran. Russia needs to do the same with Ukraine. Like this is kind of putting the sins of the proxy on the sins of the sponsor, and that's really not how proxy wars work. I mean, America should know they only fight proxy wars.
I believe this, though. If you look at Russia, I think Russia is just kind of fluffing it up with the U.S. Russia knows and has for a long time that they're going to win this on the battlefield. And I think that the Russian leadership is like, yeah, we'll go talk about this. And they'll go there and they'll talk about exchanging bodies or something. You know what I mean? I think the Russians have this thing figured out, and they're just like, we're going to keep pummeling on the battlefield. We know who you people are, but we're going to play the game. We'll play it with you. Yeah, we'll meet in Istanbul. Oh, crap. I didn't know they'd do that. Yeah. They're like, we're going to threaten the Russians. The Russians are like, got a better idea. Let's meet. And then they'll meet. Oh, we'll change bodies. Look, we got something done. And meanwhile, they're bombing, pounding the hell out of them on the front lines. I think the Russians are playing the game. They know what's going on here. And so they're not fooled. But here's what I mean. To say the Russians are not fooled. They haven't given an inch. They've said, this is what we want. And they've never backed off. They've implied we might, but they've never, ever, ever backed off. And even recently, what the most recent thing they said, well, in order to do that, it ain't just Ukraine. You're going to have to back off some other areas too. You know, the Russians are pretty clear that I think we get the game, we get it, but we'll pretend like we're negotiating with you, like we think you're about a negotiating partner. If you want to pretend, we'll pretend. And that's what I think. Meanwhile, they're just continuing to pound. It seems to me. Maybe you have a different interpretation. What's yours?
No, I do. I think that after maybe the second round of talks, I think that Russia had remained a little bit hopeful for the Trump administration. And then when they met Witkoff and Kellogg, they were like, never mind. They were very underwhelmed. But I hope that this is a little bit more of a catalyst to say, you know what, they really aren't negotiating in good faith. We knew they weren't, but we really, really know that they're not. And we don't even need to engage anymore and waste our time. They need to take this war into their own hands and move forward. I think it was Medinsky that actually said the demands have gotten worse. You should have taken them before. Now they're going with different demands. And he said he wants to put an Oreshnik on Kiev. And that's the lead negotiator.
Yeah.
So
yeah. They understand the game and they're just playing it along and they're doing what they're going to do. And they know that they've got it, that it's a kinetic game. It's not a game of talk. And I think that's where they are. I think this is really bad if you're, one of the Banderites, because you know what, you come in, you're not even in second place when it comes to Israel. Israel is in place 1 through 9. You don't even start to show up until 10th place. And I think the Banderites know, oh crap, they're going to send everything to Israel now. They were, like you said, they already started, and we ain't going to get nothing. And you know what? It sometimes you feel like this. Couldn't happen to a nicer group of guys. Now you're going to learn they never gave a crap about you. They used you, and now that they're done with you, they will let you get mowed down, and they'll walk away and say, "Oh well, we gave it a shot. Whatever." They could care less.
Exactly that. You were a proxy of convenience at the time. And then when it came down to it, you just don't take priority at the end of the day. And they just don't, even in just from an objective sense. I mean, put the locations up against each other. Who's more important? The Middle East, it's obviously going to end up in West Asia. So, I mean, that's Ukraine's stupidity, I guess. And if anything, Ukraine should be angry at Israel because they really have usurped any sort of position that Ukraine had, and it became like I have a new toy now. Like, what are you? Get away from me, peasant!
Yeah, I got a new girlfriend. Right? Sorry, you just crossed 40. You just crossed 40. I got a 23-year-old. Exactly. I'm going back to. That's what the Trump type people do in real life. You know what I mean? Oh, wow, you're 41 now. See you later. Here's a divorce. Here's 10 million. I got this 20 million. Melonia's here now.
Exactly.
That's
exactly that. That's business. That's capitalism, right? You use it until it's done. You leave it. You leave it. It's there. That's not a good deal anymore. And it's time to move on. That's Trump as the business person. People always said, I want him to run the country like a business. He's a successful businessman. That's exactly what he's doing. I hope you're happy.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. They really are running it like a business.
Yeah, they're running exactly like Trump's businesses.
Right. A neoliberal business. Mm-hmm. What does a neoliberal business do? You got a company. It comes in and it does a violent takeover of your company, right? And what's it do when you've got a good, solid, strong company? Then what does it do? How much credit do you have? Well, I could borrow $100 million. I want to borrow $100 million, but I'll never pay that back. That's okay. They buy your company. I've seen it happen. They borrow as much money as they possibly can, and then they pay it to themselves for consulting. And now your company can never pay that back. And then they gut it, and then they lay people off, and then eventually, when the company folds, they go for Chapter 11. That's how they're running the country. They're running the country the same way. They're looting the United States the same way they come in when they do a takeover of a country, and they loot the country.
Well, that's the thing. I hope people realize that imperialism and disaster capitalism eventually run out of area, and they run out of disasters, and it has to come home. So they don't have anywhere else to go. So why do you think they were like, Greenland, Canada. Let's F up Mexico. We're really at the bottom rungs of the ladder here. We're at the bottom of the totem pole. Like, we're really struggling to figure out where else we could go to exploit. China today signed a huge, while all of this is going on, China is signing huge agreements in Africa with every single nation except for Eswatini. This came out about an hour or two ago. I'm sure it's already lost in my timeline. I can't even find it. But they signed an agreement with all of the African countries that completely ousts the West and solidifies Belt and Road across Africa. We are running out of options. So who do we have to put disaster capitalism on? The American people. We did it with COVID. We're doing it again.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I'm seeing some explosions in Tel Aviv. They're hitting positions in Tel Aviv. Yeah.
Somebody keeps saying I look fun until I drink wine. I don't drink at all. I don't drink wine like at all.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. You know, what happens? It goes back and forth. And how long does Iran continue? Because, you know, look, I'll put it like this. I remember years ago, I used to go to these near where I live. They'd have amateur. Well, actually, they were professional boxing matches, but they were low level, right? And people would go there, and I would go. Friends went, right? And I'll never forget. There was a big, strong guy. I'm watching one. It was a heavyweight, and other guy was a lot smaller. And in the beginning, like in the first round, this big, strong guy, he gets a punch in on a little guy, and the little guy goes flying across the ring, slams into the rope, drops, and we're all like, oh, this guy's screwed. He gets up, shakes himself off, he's back. We're like, okay, he's tough. But at that point, you figured he's done. I mean, He took a punch that you would not want to take, right? It went about 4 or 5 rounds, and he got a good shot in on the guy. You know, like the guy swung and missed or something and left the side of his face, and that little guy, And the guy went down like a lumberjack, you know what I mean? He didn't go backwards. He like hit him, and the guy like kind of froze in the air, like a tree falling, boom, and it was over for him. So, and I'm like, well, I guess it ain't who gets the first punch in necessarily, is it? So Israel has gotten a big punch in. Now they're going to take a hit, and then we'll see how long this goes back and forth. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We know that Iran had the capacity. I'm not one of those, what do you call it? The war porn people. Yay! I'm an anti-war person. And anytime I see violence, innocent people get killed, and my inclination is to say, I don't want anybody to get killed. But I understand reality too. You know what I mean? So it's dangerous. And I'm like, the sooner this thing stops and gets over, hopefully everybody gets their punches in. But the reality is, this has nothing to do with nukes. They want to do regime change. That's what they want to do with Russia. They always want to do regime change, and it ain't working.
Exactly. Go watch, go look. Just, I mean, as soon as the attack started yesterday and I saw what they were attacking, I said, it took about maybe a half hour into this Israeli attack, and I said, this isn't about nuclear sites. This is war. They were cutting off all the radars, destroying the air defense systems, bombing the ballistic missile launchers. This is not about nuclear sites. This is about a regime change and war. They're okay with Pezeshkian because he's malleable. They want the Ayatollah gone and the mullahs gone. So that's what this is really about. I'm tired of being lied to. I'm really just sick of it. And I just don't know. I'm really dejected, and I'm kind of like angry. I can feel myself getting very black-pilled. I'm very angry at the whole thing. I'm tired of being lied to, and I need to apologize. You guys are right. I was wrong yesterday on Jamarl's show. I said Iran probably wouldn't respond, and I'm really glad I was wrong. Very glad. But there was a caveat. I said Iran would not attack American bases, and I still stand by that. I don't think that they will.
They don't have to. They don't have to.
And they shouldn't.
You know what I mean?
Honestly,
Yeah,
they really shouldn't.
Well, you know why? I'll tell you why. And let me say this. Here's why I say they shouldn't. Because that's BB's game. BB's game is, I'll hit you and I'll get you to draw, and I will drag the Americans. And that was always his game. And if the Iranians say, okay, we're going to hit you back, but I know your game, it's to drag the Americans in, and we ain't going to play that. So while emotionally some people might say, okay, I want that or don't want that to happen, strategically speaking, it makes more sense for Iran just to hit Israeli targets and not Americans.
Exactly.
And knock the hell out of them.
Exactly that. I didn't think that it was actually strategically, even tactically, advantageous to hit American sites. You really get nothing. You get no bang for your buck even doing that. That's pointless. It's more like a show of force and annoying the Americans and officially dragging them in. And, you know, Iran has really handled its negotiations and the way it's dealt with America and the EU very appropriately and very professionally. And really, America couldn't have asked for more from an adversary, a fake adversary that we've sort of made up. So commendable to Iran. There's no, you know, this isn't like Iran was so stupid to believe them. No, Iran engaged in good faith. And Iran did exactly what they were supposed to do the whole time. Maybe they were fooled a little bit. Maybe they were caught a little bit complacent and they shouldn't have been, you know, able to devastate them so badly. But at the end of the day, Iran was acting in good faith. And then Israel and America just wasn't. Again. And let this be like another lesson. Like, how many more do we need? We have Libya, Syria, Ukraine, Balkans. We have China.
They're like, hey, we want to negotiate with you. And if I'm China, I'd say, yeah, we know you're negotiating. Goes, no thanks.
Exactly.
No, because Trump has what he's done now is at this point, why would anybody ever dream of negotiating with him or the U.S.? What do they know? It was the Minsk Accords. The Minsk Accords, they admitted in the Minsk Accords. We only did that so we could like keep your mouth shut for a little while so we could get ready to slug you in the back of the head when you weren't looking. Now, what is it? Hey, were you negotiating with Iran? Not really. We were just faking them out so we could come in and that's what you do. So if you say negotiate with me, I'd be like, yeah, no thanks, pal. Whatever you're going to do, damn, you better go ahead and do it. I'm not talking to you because you're just trying to get me to turn my back so you can stick a knife in it. If you're going to have to stick a knife in it, you're going to have to stick a knife in the front. You ain't sticking a knife in the back.
Right. Well, now we know that, well, more than likely, I won't say that we know, more than likely the negotiations the whole time were there to gather intel, to get the plans together for the Israeli strike. I think they said 9 months they were planning this. It's probably a little bit longer given the scope of it.
Yeah.
But I said roughly about 9 months, probably more. Exactly that. I said, look, it's Operation Spiderweb too. It's the same exact attack. They even said the same thing last night. They said they launched drones from inside of Iran. I said, this is the Ukrainian attack. It's the same exact format. Who is telling them to do this? I don't know. Why do the Israelis and the Ukrainians have the same weapons, the same attack plans, a lot of the same strategies? They act the same. They do the same sort of terrorist attacks. Why? I don't know. Maybe because their mentor is exactly the same.
It's all one group. They're all working together. Bottom line, it's all one group and they're all working together. But, you know, people are figuring out who they are. Iran striking back as they needed to. They're standing up for themselves. We don't know what's going to happen next, but, you know, I think that's what we're going to see. Israel's, you know, what the other thing that's interesting too, and that is Tom Cotton or somebody said something like, we should hit Iran no matter the cost. There's something to think about this. If I'm an Israeli, right? If I live in Tel Aviv and some guy in Washington, D.C. is saying no matter the cost and I'm the one that's getting bombed, you know what I mean? I mean, in reality, even if you are an Israeli citizen, a person in Israel, for all the issues I got with them, they're using you too. They're sitting back there in DC and missiles are raining down on you and they don't give a crap if every one of you die. They don't care anymore about the average Israeli citizen than they do the average Kiev citizen. These people are Israel, Kiev, Taiwan. They're all nothing but cannon fodder.
But they're in a death cult too. Most of the
Israelis. Yeah. But they're still cannon fodder. They're a death cult, but they're still cannon fodder. I mean, I'm not saying they're not. They are a horrible death cult, but I'm still saying in reality, all of these suckers, some may deserve it more than others, are nothing but cannon fodder. And they're going to sit back here in D.C. at a nice restaurant in Georgetown watching the news as missiles. They don't give a crap about these people. But they're going to call me an anti-Semite if I'm opposed to what's happening in Israel, if I'm opposed to what they're doing and that they're killing people. It's madness. Well, we've got an hour, so I think we've covered everything, or at least we gave it a shot. But I think it was great, and you gave us some good updates. Anything else we need to know? Any other updates that you've seen online? What was happening? Iran responding?
It's still going.
Some planes that were shot down.
3
pilot captured.
They're reporting F-35s were shot down. If Iran shoots down an F-35, it's curtains for the United States. I will never stop making fun of Boeing, the F-35, and all of the Americans who said, the F-35 is so much better than the Su-57. No. Okay.
Interesting. Well, you know, one last thing I'll say. Everyone was talking about how successful. Oh, what happened to the Iranians? They had no air defense. They were successful. And my thing was this: until the smoke clears, you don't know,
You really
right?
don't.
You don't know if they're like, yeah, but the Israel had some hits. But how many missiles did they fire? Did they fire 1,000 missiles and 20 of them hit? Did they fire 21 missiles and 20 of them hit? We don't know. What is the percentage of missiles that got? How many got shot down? Did any planes get shot down? Until the smoke clears and you get the real data, you don't know how successful compared to what they did it really was. We're going to hear everything that says as though the Israel's like sent in one plane and blew up the whole country, but you don't know what they put out, how much was shot down, what the success rate was. You don't know how much of this stuff was fired from inside of Iran, and on and on. So it'll take a while for the smoke to clear. But you finding anything new?
No.
Yeah, it'll take a while. It'll take a
Boeing
while.
sucks. America sucks. Elon sucks. Peter Thiel. It all sucks, guys. Good luck.
Palantir. Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
black pilled. Don't come find me if you don't want to be black pilled.
Exactly. Get clobbered over the head for believing it. But you know, like I'll say about propaganda, the people with all the propaganda and people that I know that believe all this crap, they're propagandized and they're the victims. So I'll always just say, you know, if you've been victimized by propaganda to somewhat, you're a victim. So I don't want to double victimize you. I remember a time when I believed stupid shit, and now I know better. And so hopefully some of these things it'll take to wake some people up. Some people you can't wake them up, but hopefully some of these things will wake people up. And hopefully the stuff we're doing will wake people up so they can come over and say, yeah, I guess I've been had. All right. Tell everybody where they can find you again, Sarah.
Just find me on ddgeopolitics.com. And sorry, guys, I was wrong a little bit about the strikes. Sometimes I am wrong.
Well, you know what?
I'm happy to be wrong. No more. I couldn't be happier that Iran proved me wrong. I'm glad it was Iran that proved me wrong, not Israel.
You know, the only person who's never wrong is a person that doesn't do anything. It's like the only person that never makes a mistake is a person that never does anything. And the person that's never wrong is just a person who doesn't have the guts to stick their neck out and tell you what they think. So I was wrong about some of this, maybe a lot of it, but you know what? All we can do is go by what we got and continue. If you keep doing this, you'll be wrong again. I can guarantee you that.
No, never.
Oh yeah, my dad used to always say about that. He said, "Yeah, I was wrong once, but I was mistaken." So, more than wrong once, but I was. I thought I was no. What was it? Listen, wrong once in my life. I thought I was wrong, but I was mistaken.
I was mistaken. I love that. That's
all right, everybody, follow Sarah DD Geopolitics. She's great, and they've got a YouTube channel, so you got to go there and you got to subscribe and all that stuff. Hey, share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on Rockfin. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Telegram. All that kind of stuff. We're out. See you later, Sarah.